All right. I'd like to call the meeting to order for the Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, April 2nd, 2024. Do a roll call.
Gary Harris.
Sean Weldon. Dave Reese.
Maggie Wentler.
Bethany Soderland.
Okay. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Just the addition that John Taylor will be attending virtually, but I do not see that he is on the meeting at this point. So he is not with us right now.
Okay. All right. I'd like to entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next, to approve the meeting minutes for March 6th, 2024. Any corrections or additions to the minutes?
No.
No.
Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Next item is an open forum. Is there anyone present that would like to speak towards anything not on the agenda this evening? All right. Moving on to public hearings. I'll entertain a motion to open the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. First item is interim use permit application 006-24 for the replacement of a temporary commercial structure within the central business zoning district. This subject property is located at 25469 Main Street. PID is 28110502. Applicant is Gary.
Grant.
I'm sorry, Grant. I jumped ahead to the last name. Wanted to make sure I get that right. Liniemi.
Ulanini.
I'll get it right next time, Grant. Owner of the property is Shirley Ann Doolam. And will the applicant please have a seat at the desk or stand at the podium and state your name for the record and how to pronounce your last name?
Hello, my name is Grant Elanimi. I'm 23 years old and yeah, I'd like to answer any questions you guys have or
Hey, Grant, do you want to tell us a little bit about the project?
so I recently or about a year ago when Mark acquired Adirondack business, had come to him with this idea of red shaved ice. And what it is a food stand made from a Airstream trailer. And I'll be serving shaved ice out of it. And there's a picture of it right there. Yeah, that's.
I'll go ahead and
Bethany, you want-
supply my staff report.
Yeah.
Grant is requesting permission for a temporary commercial structure. This is an allowed use, though we don't see these very often. There's a lot of differences between having a transient merchant or a peddler or canvasser versus what's he's proposing, sorry. What he's proposing is on private property. It is a temporary structure. Use will cease with the cessation of his business. So he does have permission from the property owner and from the current leasee of that property, in other words, Rafferty's and Adirondack, to conduct this business. I did include the portions from the ordinance in your packet this evening because I'm assuming none of you have ever read about the temporary commercial structures that are allowed in the downtown central business district. If you have any questions concerning that, I'd be happy to help.
Okay. Is there anyone that would like to make a public comment regarding the project? Hearing none, I will close public comments. Any questions?
Got one question and maybe two and a comment.
Sure.
Is Reds is that like a franchise? Is that a national brand? Or is that a
No.
brand of shaved ice, the machine or something, or are you Red?
I'm red.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, love it.
Yep.
One day will be a franchise.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah, the first in the franchising. Wow.
Yeah.
Um, my comment was putting a 1977 Airstream in this location in Nisswa, I think is so perfect. You know, that's my own view of it because it just fits in with the whole vibe of things up here and maybe the only thing that might have been a little closer to home would have been a scamp trailer being
Sure.
built right up the road, you know,
Yeah.
but Airstreams are pretty cool and especially the old ones like
Yeah.
this, so, yeah.
Thank you.
But, and that building's gonna be torn down, the shack that's there, I assume?
Yes, it'll be replaced with,
So it'll go
something
right
like
where the
this.
shack and the tables are there, and so.
yes.
Is there gonna be tables outside for
Yes.
folks to sit and eat their shaved ice at?
Yep. Yes, Mark actually has those out there. I don't know if you've seen in that courtyard area. He just acquired a bunch of tables and stuff, so I'll be sharing those with him.
Great. That was it. That was my comments.
Yeah, I don't have any questions.
I'd like to just address the signage really quickly. There will be signs that will be located on the camp or on the Airstream itself. Those do meet ordinance requirements for size for that. The red shaved ice that will be placed on top of it, we're going to go with a protruding sign and then it does meet that as well. But those will be just on there and he won't have signage outside of that. I'm assuming probably a sandwich board in the courtyard though, and that'll be
Yeah.
a temporary signage and that's allowed without a permit.
Okay.
How much does a shaved ice sell for just out of curiosity?
It'll probably be, I haven't dialed down on what the price will be exactly, but it'll probably be around $4 for,
Different
very
sizes
small.
and.
Yeah. yep.
Grant, you got an idea what kind of hours you're gonna keep?
I'm thinking for the summer, we'll probably try and do 10 a.m. to 9 p.m.
Okay. When do you hope to get started?
So I'm waiting on my permits from the state still. And so I'm hoping to be able to start sometime in May, end of May, maybe.
Okay.
And they do an inspection of the trailer, right?
Yep. Yeah, they do inspection and all that stuff.
You're gonna, in the fall end, do you pull it out of there and store it indoors someplace? or-
Yeah, I'll probably do something like that.
Okay.
None of it has much bearing on it, I guess, but kind of.
Dave, any thoughts? Comments, questions?
No, looking at the photo where you're proposing to put it where that shed is, looks good. That was the only thing that really came to my mind was where it would be located and, you know, if it was like on a corner of a block or something like that where traffic could see around it. That would have been a comment. but
Yeah.
Looks good there.
Okay, perfect.
Grant, are you gonna draw power from the Adirondack or or is that gonna
Um,
be a generator or?
Yeah, so there will be an onboard generator, but it'll just be in case power is cut off or anything like that.
Okay,
So power will be run underground from the back of Adirondack, and then there's just gonna be a little spot for
Yeah.
it to
Got
pop
it.
out of the
Okay.
ground.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
Huffback was put a box on this corner of the Adirondack for you, it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep.
Okay.
got it. All right, any additional comments?
Nope.
I'll entertain a motion. Approve, deny,
I'll make a motion.
Table?
The interim use application for application 006-24. With anything that the staff reports or anything like that need to be added to it.
There are 4 conditions.
Yeah.
No. Exactly.
And the findings of fact.
And the findings of fact.
Second.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
Aye.
All those
luck.
opposed?
Yep.
Motion carries.
Good luck.
Thank
Grant.
you.
yeah,
Yeah, good luck. All right, second item is a conditional use permit application 007-24 to obtain a conditional use permit for dirt and material moving of over 100 cubic yards in shoreland for the creation of trails within the public and recreation zoning district. The subject property is located at 22549 Camp Lincoln Road. Would you like each of these PIDs read? Okay. We've got 6 PIDs, applicant owner, City of Nisswa. Thanks for coming to the podium.
Yes, hi.
Yeah,
All right, so the staff report, this is a request for dirt moving over or up to 600 cubic yards in the shoreline to accommodate the construction of 3,800 feet of trails as shown on the certificate of survey. Excuse me. It is broken down. That there will be approximately 76 cubic yards of dirt moving in SIZ 1, 82 cubic yards in SIZ 2, and an additional 406 cubic yards in the RLZ. They have already completed about 1,800 feet of the trails with standard shoreland alteration permits. And a septic permit for the vault toilet, that was a requirement as well. And now they are just seeking, or we are just seeking the CUP to complete those trails.
Where's the parking gonna be?
You want to scroll to a map?
And obviously isn't gonna
It's
be
on the
Camp Lincoln Road.
southern end of the park. There it is. So my right, there's a shaded rectangle where the two trails converge, and that is the parking lot. And that is the south end. There. Ta-da. So that's Camp Lincoln Road running north, south. And then the driveway coming off of that into the parking lot. That center loop is the loop that has already been constructed, about 1,800 feet. And so what we are looking at here today is kind of the rest of that southern section as well as the northern loop. And that's what this CUP is for.
So this is really, it's just trail use, correct?
Correct. They're non-motorized trails, 8 feet wide, crushed concrete.
Be cross-country skiing in the winter?
Potentially, we don't have equipment to groom for it, but it's certainly
Yeah.
an allowable use.
Yeah.
State your name for the.
My name is Amber Moon Peterson, and I am the Park and Rec Director for City of Nisswa.
Amber, you have a sense of when this will all happen?
Once the ground thaws,
Okay,
they can start clearing the trees once this is approved. And kind of the snow melts and go through that. But they were very quick with the first loop, so as long as we don't get too far into the summer busy season, they'll be able to move through it very quickly.
okay.
And then the toilet is expected for early July at this time. So it should be pretty operational come midsummer.
Okay. It appears that we don't have anybody who'd like to make public comment for this project. Hearing none, I will close public comments. Any other questions, comments on this one? Dave, you got anything?
Just standard PMPs when it's needed, where it's needed.
Certainly.
Alright. Well, I'll entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the conditional use application 007 24. Along with findings of fact and
One condition, is that correct?
conditions.
Second.
Alright, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
See you. See you on the trail.
All right. Third item is ordinance amendment 008 24 to adopt an ordinance amendment modifying chapter 20 of the Nisswa Code of Ordinances regarding land use and development within the city of Nisswa. Chris, thanks for joining. Bethany, you want to walk us through your staff report?
Don't really have a staff report for this one, but included in your packet is a markup copy of chapter 20 and the ordinance revisions that are being proposed. The strike through is what is being removed. The underline is being added. Following that in your packet is a clean copy that just reflects what the ordinance will be, should it be approved. The DNR will conduct a final review once the city council adopts this proposed ordinance. The council or the commission motion tonight is just to recommend either approval or denial to city council, but this will go to city council in 2 weeks.
Okay. All right, Chris, do you have anything in addition to add?
Yeah, would you like me to walk you through the ordinance a little bit, or do you want me to just ask any questions after you've read it,
No.
I'm sure thoroughly from front to back?
No, could you give us the logic of the whole thing and what the story is?
Yeah, well, we'll do the best we can. How's that sound?
That's
So
good.
glad to be here tonight. Glad to see this getting to the finish line, which I think is important for Bethany and for the city so that we have this ready to go for the new construction season coming up. A lot of what you see in the ordinance tonight, a lot of it really wasn't new change. It was just organization. Things were just not in the right spot from a logically, just trying to follow the ordinance through logically. So you'll see a lot of strike through in there. Then you'll see a lot of underline. A lot of it just taking what you had because it was actually pretty good, but getting it in the right spot so that you have, you could just try to follow up more of a logical reasoning. And so one of the things that you'll find like in section 20-153 is we deleted the open space development. That just kind of went away in general because we better defined the PUD standards in the ordinance. So that was removed. We took the urban residential PUD, that would be your non-shoreline residential PUD standards, and removed that from, because a lot of this was up in your section dealing with like shoreline aspect. It just wasn't in the right spot. The actual language was good, but it just needed to be moved to a different location. We did clean up Division 3, which is your commercial, and to really make that more streamlined so that when people come in, they know what is required for an application and to submit that. And so you'll see some areas that were removed, like you have screening and landscaping, exterior building finish. That was great, just in the wrong spot. And so we took it from here and put it back in the ordinance. So as you start out with an ordinance and you're getting into a subdivision, you're going to start out with what are the commercial land use districts that this applies to? What is the intent of what's the ordinance trying to do? And then what do you need to submit for a plan? What does Beth need to have submitted so that she can determine if it meets the requirements of the ordinance? There really wasn't a section on what needs to be provided. And so if you go down to page 40, you'll see, just a little bit up there, you'll see all the different things that need to be submitted now for a complete application, things like screening and a lighting plan, off-street loading, a sign plan, stormwater management, all the things the ordinance requires. It just now puts into one spot. So when somebody comes in and wants to apply for something, they know what they need to submit to be a complete application. And so like you look at like exterior building finish, nothing changed there. We put that right in what it was. We just put it at the right spot. Same with like, a lot of the stuff was already organized in the right spot as far as your exterior lighting, temporary structures, All those items, everything there was in really good shape. We took the screening section that was at the beginning of this division and moved it over to 189. Just trying to follow that more logical reasoning as far as, you know, what those requirements are. And then for some reason, resorts were kind of plugged in here at the same time, and that just wasn't the right spot for resorts. So we took a lot of the resorts that you see here and plugged it into the PUD part of the ordinance is where it belongs. And so a lot of language is actually really good. It just wasn't in the right spot to try to follow through on that. And so like you see, there's a lot of things, you know, being deleted. We jump into this area here, section 305, or division 2, or PUDs. Again, this is going to be some new language here that is going to define what are the 4 types of PUDs that are allowed within city code now. You have your shoreline district PUD, residential PUD, shoreline district commercial PUD, then you have your urban residential PUD, and then you have your non-shoreline district PUD. So there's different standards for that, and we just laid that out in the ordinance so it's much more clear. Again, we deleted some things that I'm not really sure what the intention was, like this general implementation plan and these different items, which were, I think, and then a specific implementation plan. It just seemed like a lot of hoops to jump through, and I really don't see the return on the investment or the value that it brought. And so then when you get into 20-381, this is where you start to get into the planning and development standards and what the expectations are. What we really did was just get you in line with the shoreline rules. The city is now meeting the minimum standards of the shoreline rules so that you're compliant with that. And that's what 3-4 has got some standards, you know, specifically as to what the expectations are, as far as mooring spaces and that. We cleaned up the density evaluation requirements in 385 so that we understand the different tiers and what we can do in those separate tiers. You get down into the next page and it starts to go through on page like 61, step 1, step 2, what are the steps that you need to follow to go through the different parts of the ordinance. And then there's some performance standards that we have in place that people are gonna have some higher densities if they do certain things. And so let's, you know, for example, if your impervious coverage in tier 1 is reduced to 20%, then you get a 10% increase in the density allowed for that development. If you reduce it down to 15%, you get an additional 10% onto that. If you remove all non-conforming structures, you get an additional 10%. So we're trying to, you know, encourage these certain standards, and you get a little bit of a higher density for that. You're capped, the maximum that you can have as far as the impervious is at 50%, so you can't keep going up and double it. But the ticket, I think that's most important on this is if you look at 2A. Scroll just a little bit further. Nope, up just a hair. Right there. So no density increases will be allowed unless a setback is increased to 150 feet for a general development lake and an RD lake, and then 225 for our natural environment lake. So to even qualify for these densities, you gotta be set back further from the lake. And so that's kind of the trade-off that we saw, that you can do a little bit more, but it's just gonna have to move back further from the lake. If you want to be up close, that's great. You're not gonna get any increased densities for that. And so we want them to do things like remove non-conforming structures. We want them to restore, do some shoreline restoration to get native vegetation along our shoreline in there. So some of those are the trade-offs that allow them a little bit of a higher density. And I think that it really made a lot of sense for the residential side. Then when you jump down to page 63, we have our commercial standards. This is where we were really kind of edgewise against the DNR standards. So this really clarified that as far as the steps and how you develop a PUD. Really what it boils down to is that in shoreline rules and the PUD standards, they've got, you have, if you look on the left side column, you have your inside floor area, the average size of the dwelling that's being proposed. And then based on that, depending on the lake that you're on, there's a density multiplier that you're allowed to cover. So like take, for example, if you're going to do something like a campground, which would be less than 200 square feet, those would be camping sites, and up to 400, you can then cover 5.6% of that area in those tiers and so that would be in tier 1. And then once you get back into these other tiers, it gives you more of that development. But so the bigger your structure is, so let's say you get down to somebody wanting to build larger cabins, like you might see at Grandview, then at that point you're allowed to, to cover up to 15% of that area on a GD lake. And so it really just, this meets the minimum standards of what the ordinance requires. I think we should let it go for a year and see how it plays out in real life. you might want to, you might say that, gosh, we think maybe that 15% coverage is a little bit too much. You might want to dial it back to a 12.5 or something, put a kind of a cap on that. But for right now, this meets the minimum state requirements, and that was the goal of this ordinance revision, was just to get us to meeting that. And then if you get into section 386, it's just got the PUD design requirements, what they have to do to submit to actually get a complete application for a PUD. And that's what these section is. This is a lot of what was already there. We just did some minor modifications for clarification on it. And to be clear, one of the changes that DNR wanted us to make was there's a lot of green space references, and now the term is more open space. And so we clarified that so that we have that provision in there. And then just clarified, when you do a PUD, they want, for an existing development, they want 50% of that shoreline to be maintained. For new, it's 70%. And so just getting that clarification in there for what the shoreline should look like as part of the development. 387 now puts resorts, because the resort is a PUD. And so it puts resorts in the PUD section, which is where it belongs. And so a lot of what you see here is just moving it from that section that was earlier up in the ordinance. We included the urban residential PUDs, and this is those areas outside of the shoreline district where you want to have more of a higher density. This allows a different density amount to be allowed. Basically, if you go to page 71, it's ends up being a density of 10,000 square foot per single family and duplex. So it allows a 10,000 square foot density in there. So it does allow, higher density in that for those types of PUDs. And then we have the non-shoreline type PUDs that aren't in that urban area, but we still have a standard. If they want to do a non-shoreline planning and development, we still have those standards there. That's the lion's share of the changes that we made. There's a few items in the back that we had to delete because they're hiding back in parts of the ordinance. They were on like page 111. There was alternate procedure for a PUD. I don't think we want an alternate procedure. We have a procedure. We just, so there were just a few things that we had to clean up a little bit because that really didn't apply, I think, to what the city is trying to accomplish. And then the only definitions that we made any changes to in the back were changing green space to open space. And there was another one. I'm trying to think what that was. And maybe there wasn't a different one, but I know open space was definitely one. Yeah, and I think we just deleted the green space out and left it as open space. And then, I was looking at the county ordinance this morning, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of, right? Who knows? Because we're updating the county ordinance right now too. So I've got like dueling projects going. So it's interesting to keep things straight, but for the most part, I think that what you've got here now is an ordinance that meets the standards for the DNR. We did get a letter from them back on the 9th of February stating that it was a conditional approval with a few modifications that they wanted us to make, which we did. So all those changes have been made, and so the DNR will support this now going forward. The one item that needs to be resolved, and that isn't part of this revision because we need more discussion, I think, with you guys and the council, is what to do with the PDD district, which is the planned development district, which is really it's an area that's over top of the, can't remember, is it the Pines?
It is the
Pines?
Pines,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's North Pines.
And so that's really the only area that it applies to. And so the question is that still a zoning that we want, or is that something that we can eliminate because the Pines it's been developed, the golf course is there, everything is in place. And so that I think just requires some discussion. It's not for tonight, but just something to put on your plate as far as what needs to happen. But the DNR is okay with us moving that to round 3, which would be in 25, to get that resolved. And there's some other things that Bethany has got lined up that she wants me to take a look at starting again this fall. Again, we'll do some more cleanup, but that, I think round 3 should be about it. And
That
then
is,
you
we're
guys will be
hoping.
cleaned. Yep.
Yeah, we're
I
hoping
think
for
one
that.
more round of ordinance subjects. I think we're just trying to bite it off in sizable chunks because it can be too much if you try to do too much at one time. So I'd be happy to answer any questions if you had any thoughts or concerns or where we're at with the ordinance, but I think it's in a great spot, and I think really meets the requirements. We did make some updates based on Dave's feedback earlier about wanting to make sure that the city was involved in wastewater discussions. And so not just defaulting to a septic system, but, defaulting to if the city sewer is available, that they should be connecting to that first if it's feasible. And that would be up to the city engineer to determine the feasibility of if the connection to city sewer is, is feasible for that project. So we did clarify that in the ordinance based on that feedback.
All right, seeing that we don't have anybody in attendance for public comments, hearing none, I'll close the public comment section. And, here, Sean, anything, questions?
I have no questions.
Oh, I think this is, we've come a long way
I think so.
in the last year and a half, and it's,
Well, it
It's-
keeps getting smaller. So
Yeah.
it's just
Yes.
getting, we are reducing it in size and
but,
increasing it in efficiency.
but
I think so.
it should make life easier for developers.
It
and-
will.
And staff and,
Yep.
and us, because we have to rely on basically what other people have, professionals have routed out for us before the meetings and.
There are
And-
3 other items in that, though, I wanted to just touch base with you. We did remove the definition from our land use table or the item of boarding house. It doesn't speak about boarding houses in the rest of the ordinance, so we did remove that.
Right.
We also changed, after advice from our city attorney, to change the structure to structure setback was listed as 10 feet in the central business district. And we all know that those buildings are built right next to each other. It also has a 0-foot setback in the central business district.
Right.
So he advised that we remove that and put the structure to structure setback for the central business district to 0. And then the other item that we did change is that the entrance signs or the area identification signs for planned unit developments, we require 2 entrances into these developments, and yet our sign ordinance only allows for 1 identification sign. I thought that if we are going to require 2 entrances, we can allow that change. And so we didn't do for two signs, we just allow 1 per entrance. So that way they don't get 2 if there's only 1 entrance for some reason. And if by any chance there happens to be 3, they'd be allowed that as well.
That's the plan.
But
Yeah.
it's been really, well, good working with you, Chris.
I've enjoyed it.
It's,
It's been fun.
I don't know what your number of hours you've got on this thing, but I know that it's more than 5.
It's a few. Yeah, it's a few. I've learned a lot too. So going through this process helped me to really get a better understanding of the PUD process in general. And
Yeah.
so that was really good for me to go through too. And so I've learned a lot myself.
Win,
And so
win on both sides.
It is. I appreciate
Yeah.
the opportunity. It's really, and frankly, it's really enjoyable to work with, with a city that wants to improve its ordinances and it wants to, make sure that it's doing the right thing by its citizens and having the right official controls in place.
Well,
So
it
you
was
guys should be
re- it was-
commended for wanting.
It was
to
really
work on this.
confusing.
Yeah.
Under the old
The old one
ordinances,
was,
and it was,
yeah, I couldn't
no-
figure it out.
I'm sure that the people, the staff were not able to answer questions. I'm sure that's some of the questions that
Right.
were made, so.
Yeah.
I had to
Uh,
say, I'll get back to you quite often.
Yeah.
So.
So,
And it's been a pleasure to work with Bethany. She's done a nice job, I think, for you
Yeah.
guys and
It's
I
Bethany.
think, yeah, I think you've done a really good job and getting everything laid out the way it's supposed to. So you got good staff in place and, we've got she knows that I'm available by phone call or if she wants to come up and look at a site with her sometime, I'm more than happy to kind of provide a little, mentoring if needed in certain situations. I've been around the block a few times, so I know a couple things once in a while. I get lucky. But I'd be, happy to help her when that comes up this summer, when it gets more near construction season, so.
All right, Dave, anything to add before we entertain a motion?
No, the only thing I was thinking was it's probably good to take that PDD, general implementation plan and specific implementation plan out of there if you're not gonna use it.
Yeah, and we're proposing to remove it both, so.
Yeah.
I've only seen it used in one community around here.
Yeah.
And unless you have some specific land mass or area
Right.
that would support something like that, so you
Right.
really have a specific type of development that would
Right.
involve mixed use and
Mhm.
all kinds of impervious coverage and have to support itself. with all of its own infrastructure.
Right.
That's really what that was used for.
Right.
In that instance that I mentioned.
Yeah.
So,
I think that was going to be used for back a number of years for the airport property. You know, that's one of the few properties around here that would probably really fit because you multi-use, a lot of different things happening in there, so.
I think we can handle that now through the CUP process and just work through what we've got laid out. I think we'll cover it.
Yeah.
If that situation were to come up, I think we could cover it. through
Yeah,
this.
to
Correct.
rezone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the difficulty is that the ordinance didn't speak to it very well, but it's still on our zoning map. And
Right.
so we can't just go ahead and like remove it because it still
Exactly.
exists on our map. And so in
Yeah.
order to deal with the currently zoned PDD, which is the Pines, we needed to have some provisions still in place. So we left kind of those areas still there.
We'll have to figure out
Once
the-
again, this is something that will be on your desks this fall.
Yeah, we'll figure it out coming up on version round 3. So
Round 3.
What's included in the central business district? I mean, how big is that here? Is
Let me pull up our zoning map.
you okay if I run?
Absolutely.
I came up like a little
Yep.
bit of a family emergency. It looks like.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Chris.
No, that's,
Not a problem. Thank you so much for being here tonight. All right, so here's our zoning map. Trying to enlarge it. So the bright yellow is central business.
okay. What's the pink?
That is urban residential.
Oh. So that's Main Street coming down through there between the two? That, or am I looking at? that?
Yeah, and I wish I could enlarge it more. It's not really letting me.
Can't tell what the roads are.
Yes, that is Main Street.
Yeah, so it's Main Street where my cursor is right here.
Yeah.
And that green right here, that's City Park and City Land right here. And
that's
so
the
this
one-
is Nisswa Avenue right here.
got it.
And this is Smiley right down in here. This is Lakers Lane. And so all of this is zoned.
So that
central
goes into
business.
Lee Anderson's land all the way out? Correct.
This goes out, yeah, this encompasses the Legion property.
Got it.
Mhm.
Okay.
Down to the creek.
Where does Lee's land begin?
But he's got that, he's got some land along the highway there.
Oh, got it.
So does anybody have any questions? We will need to finish, I think we need a recommendation to city council.
You looking for a motion?
Yeah, looking for a motion.
I'll move that the City of Nisswa Planning Commission Board of Adjustment recommend to the City Council, Nisswa City Council, that to approve the ordinance amendment 008-24 to adopt an ordinance amendment modifying Chapter 20 of the Nisswa Code of Ordinances regarding land use and development within the city of Nisswa. No conditions or anything. There's no staff.
Second.
Okay.
Second, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. All right, new business.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, make a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. New business,
Yeah, the new business showed none on the
None.
on our agenda.
old business, none.
No, I added one that I got a question, that's all. And I guess it would be new business at this point. Maybe it's old business because they've owned the property for 1,000 years. Grandview has been logging off all of the land north of 13 and west of the church
Yes, they should not be
this
doing
week.
any clear cutting and they should not be doing any open cutting. And so,
I think there's a section out in the middle that's probably been opened up for something, but
Okay.
I haven't been out there, but it's just driving through there. It's a stark change now because, it's, in many ways, it's for the best.
yeah,
'Cause it's gonna eliminate fire hazard, number one.
I'll take a
and-
drive out there, but they did contact the city, and the city, doesn't issue permits for forestry
No, I know
purposes, and
that.
so we wouldn't have that. They did say that they were going to do a third select cuttings. I did caution them that they couldn't do open cutting and they couldn't do, clear cutting. And so, I'll have to go and take a look,
Yeah, you
but
might
they
wanna-
are allowed to take out anything dead downed, and I know there was probably a
And
lot of,
Lots of it.
yeah.
But yeah, you can, when you drive down 13 now, you can look right through to all the way to the other side of the property. So I mean,
Wow.
it's sparse, but it's like a open, well-maintained national forest in there. There's a lot of trees left. I mean, they
Okay.
didn't clear cut.
Okay,
There might be something in the middle, out where they work, and 'cause
okay.
they've been cutting wood there for years. That's firewood for their cabins and all that stuff, and I think that's where the fire started a few years ago too. It got out of hand back there.
I'll have to,
And all of our buildings, everybody had to be vacated out of there, so. But, it looks nice. I was just curious if if we're gonna see something in a couple, 3 months or over the summer, if we're gonna see some new development.
I haven't heard anything, so, there's nothing that's on the table as far as proposed development. I was just contacted by a forester who had been contracted.
That's fine,
Yeah,
I was just curious, but
we've gotten a lot of calls, so I bet it's a very stark contrast to what people are used to.
yeah, they've hauled a lot of lumber out of there, but I mean, it's all, logging it's maintaining the forests, a lot of people don't like any cutting, but I think it looks nice.
Silviculture and proper forest management is important, especially to reduce disease and to keep fire hazards low.
Yeah, and I live on the east border of that. Not
So you drive
right
by
up
all the time.
Hoosers, and Jake Hoosers got the property in between us, but when that stuff catches on fire there and the prevailing winds come from the west, I mean, we're right in the way, so it only has to jump about 40 feet and then we're gonna lose townhouses, so. But I was curious if we're gonna see a
You help me out, Gary?
townhouse development or something.
I've heard
Is it
nothing.
east of Camp Lincoln Road or whereabouts?
No, this is on north of 13, on the other side. You know where Camp Lincoln Road tees into 13 right
Yep,
there?
yep.
It's on the north side of the road.
Got it.
And they own all the property from the church, I think all the way down to where there's a small house there in the bend.
Yep.
And they own everything in between there. I think that's all zoned residential and townhomes, I think.
It is
That
zoned
multiple.
OSR, so open space residential.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it.
Nice property. There was a lake, the Fish Trap Lake is the one that's got the water end to the east of us. And if you look on all the maps, the Fish Trap Lake is marked back out in this property in Grandviews. To where the lake was, because there was once upon a time that was all wet or water out there, and it wrapped around through the single family development to the north.
Okay.
And it came down and it connected with the part that's open now, the
Mhm.
Fish Trap Lake, so.
There's a development right past there, right? That goes to the north
Yeah, right north of us
and it says private road or private drive on it.
on 13.
Yeah, right. out
Well, that's
front.
us. That's White Pine Villas. That's our townhomes. And then we get north, you go in there, it goes about a half a mile in. Then we got a cul-de-sac, and then just north of that, there's single family homes back in, I forget what the property's called, the development, Wild Wings.
Wild Wings.
Wild Wings, yeah. And that's nice back in there. And,
I just was curious. What was,
yeah. No, that's just our townhouses that you saw there, right at the road.
Hey, Bethany, you want to walk us through the city planners report?
Yes, I just have a few permits that were approved this last month. There were 8 permits approved. There's been a couple more since then, so things are picking up.
They are.
I am getting a lot more permit requests, a lot more calls coming in already, and so I anticipate as soon as road restrictions are up, that we'll get a lot more.
Gotcha. All right. Any other comments? Should we adjourn? I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. Meeting's adjourned.
Nice work.